Hi, this is Fuad Abasov, a broker with Right at Home Realty, and this is your monthly real estate statistics. August gave us a mixed bag. Across the GTA, there were about 5,211 home sales, which is actually a small increase of roughly 2% compared to last year. So yes, deals are still happening, but new listings surged to about 14,000, which is nearly a 10% jump year over year. That imbalance, more listings but only a slight bump in sales, means buyers are now in a stronger position. It's no longer the frenzied market of a few years ago. The average selling price across the region dropped to roughly 1.02 million, which is about 5% lower than last August. Detached homes were hit hardest, down about 7%, while semi-detached, freehold townhomes and condos also price drops of around 4 to 5%. So, if you're a buyer looking for a detached home, there's some breathing room compared to last year's prices. The sales to new listings ratio, that's the stat that tells us if it's a buyer's or seller's market, sits around 37%. Anything under 40% is considered the buyer's market, and that's exactly where we are. Buyers now have more options and more leverage in negotiations. Sellers, on the other hand, are competing for attention, so strategic pricing, strong marketing, and flexibility are crucial. A few factors are driving this trend. Affordability remains a huge challenge. Even as prices cool, mortgage payments are still steep, and some potential buyers are waiting to see if rates drop further. Investor appetite is weaker too. Many investors who snapped up reconstruction condos a few years ago are pulling back because the math just doesn't work anymore with today's rents and carrying costs. On top of that, new condo development is under stress. Several projects across Toronto have been cancelled or delayed, and GTA new home sales have been described as being at rock bottom. That adds uncertainty to the market. So, what does this all mean? If you're a buyer, the current market offers opportunity. There are plenty of listings, sellers are open to negotiation, and you've got time to do your due diligence without the bidding wars we saw in the past years. If you're a seller, you need a smart strategy. Proper staging, sharp pricing, and powerful marketing, like professional photography, targeted online exposure, and skilled negotiation are more important than ever. And if you're an investor, proceed with caution. Make sure the numbers work in today's environment, not just based on the past performance. And now, let's take a closer look at detached home sales in Toronto and surrounding areas. In Toronto, average selling price of detached home in August was $1.55 million. Compared to last August, that's 9.64% decrease. Sales were up by 9.5%. Amount of new listings rose to 18%. On average, it takes 31 days for a detached home to be sold in Toronto today. In Vaughan, average selling price of detached home in August was $1.59 million. Compared to last August, prices went down by 6.7%. Amount of sales was up by 24%. New listings were up by 17%. On average, it takes approximately 31 days for a detached home to be sold in Vaughan today. In Richmond Hill, average selling price of detached home in August was $1.68 million. Compared to last August, prices went down by 19%. Sales were up by 22%. New listings were also up by 25%. On average, it takes 33 days for a detached home to be sold in Richmond Hill today. In Mississauga, average selling price of a detached home in August was down compared to last August by 6.3% and was sitting at $1.41 million. Sales remained unchanged. Amount of new listings was up by 24%. On average, it takes 33 days for a detached home to be sold in Mississauga today. In Markham, average selling price of a detached home in August was $1.57 million. Compared to last August, that's 10% decline in price. Sales were up by almost 11%, new listings were up by 15%. On average, it takes 30 days for a detached home to be sold in Markham today. In Newmarket, average selling price of a detached home in August was $1.17 million. Prices remained unchanged compared to last August. Sales were up by 28% and new listings were up by 52%. On average, it takes 35 days for a detached home to be sold in Newmarket today. In Aurora, average selling price of a detached home in August was $1.57 million. Compared to last year, that's 7% decline in price. Sales were down by almost 11%. New listings were down by 9%. On average, it takes 36 days for a detached home to be sold in Aurora today. In Innisfil, average selling price of a detached home was $887,000 in August. Compared to last August, that's almost 7% decline in price. Sales were down by 19%, new listings were up by 19%. On average, it takes close to 43 days for a detached home to be sold in Innisfil today. King City saw an average selling price of a detached home in August at $3.26 million. 7.65% increase compared to prices of last year. Sales were down by 40%, new listings remained the same as last August. On average, it takes 57 days for a detached home to be sold in King City today. In Bradford, average selling price of a detached home in August was $996,000. Compared to last August, that's 13% decline in price. Sales were up by 45%, new listings were also up by 43%. On average, it takes 25 days for a detached home to be sold in Bradford today. In Milton, average selling price of a detached home in August was $1.21 million. That's 9% decline in price compared to last August. Sales were down by 18.5%. New listings, however, were up by almost 11%. On average, it takes 28 days for a detached home to be sold in Milton today. In Stoufville, average selling price of a detached home in August was $1.41 million. That's almost 16% decline in price compared to last August. Sales were up by 76%. New listings were down by 2%. On average, it takes 45 days for a detached home to be sold in Stoufville today. In Barrie, average selling price of a detached home in August was $777,000. Compared to last August, that's 8.60% decline in price. Sales were up by 28%, new listings were up by 2%. On average, it takes 33 days for a detached home to be sold in Barrie today. In Oakville, average selling price of a detached home in August was $1.91 million. Compared to last August, that's almost 8% decline in price. Sales were up by almost 9%, new listings were up by almost 15%. On average, it takes 34 days for a detached home to be sold in Oakville today. As we head into the fall, many are watching the Bank of Canada for possible further rate cuts, which could bring some buyers back. But confidence takes time to rebuild, so the recovery won't happen overnight. Markets always move in cycles. What goes up can come down and eventually it goes up again. August 2025 shows us that the Toronto market is adjusting after years of intense growth. For those who stay informed and make smart, well-timed moves, there are still great opportunities out there.
If you'd like to receive your own personalized sales report about home sales in your neighborhood, please call me at 647-801-3401 or email me at sold@fuadhomes.com. Thanks for watching and see you next month.